Welcome back to another episode of the More Than Outdoors podcast, the podcast where we talk about the people, places, and passions that drive Maine's outdoor recreation economy. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Austin French.
And I'm Sam Andrews.
And we are in a very different location than maybe some of our other episodes today, but we do have some beautiful scenery in art form surrounding us today. And so we have Ben jumping on the podcast with us from the Maine Island Trail Association. Ben, thank you so much for being able to come on the podcast and hang out with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Sam, where are we exactly today?
Well, we are in Portland, and we're at the Maine Island Trail Association's office. So we're actually doing a podcast indoors, which is pretty unique to us. Because the Rue Institute right next door is making a lot of noise, so we couldn't be outside on your beautiful deck. But happy to be surrounded by these beautiful photos in here.
Totally.
If we had a bigger window, we could have taken a boat out to one of the islands, but next time.
Yeah.
Next time. Well, there's always a follow-up. So, Ben, how we like to start a lot of these episodes is just trying to lay the groundwork of like how our guests even ended up in the outdoor world in the first place, because everybody's got their own windy path.
Sure.
So maybe just quick intro spiel of like who you are, what you do, and who you do it for, and then how'd you end up in the outdoor world in the first place?
Sure. Well, thank you guys for having me. My name is Ben Dougherty. I grew up here in Maine. I'll get to the story of how I first got personally connected to the outdoors, but I'm the executive director of the Maine Island Trail Association. I've been here for just under 2 years, and my return to Maine was timed with my start here at MITA. So, although I grew up here, I was gone for most of the last 25 years pursuing a career, and have been happy to come back with my 2 young kids and root them here, which is wonderful.
That's awesome.
I grew up here in Maine near the coast. I actually had, as a kid, not a whole lot of connection to the ocean. My parents were not sailors or sea kayakers or even really particularly outdoors people, although like everyone in Maine, I certainly did some camping and some hiking and some things that maybe were the early starts to that. But I really, as I kind of left high school and started to explore, I had some incredible opportunities that just really very rapidly changed my life that were all rooted in the outdoors. So I spent a lot of time backpacking and sea kayaking and sailing in various parts of the U.S. and the Caribbean and ultimately in other parts of the world in those first few years out of high school. I met people who inspired me. I saw, actually the first year out of high school, I saw every sunrise and every sunset for a year.
What?
That's
such a fun fact.
Awesome.
and then I was tired. And but yeah, it was pretty different actually from my childhood in a lot of ways. And I was kind of, as many people are, kind of at an inflection point and looking for a little bit of identity and luckily I had some curiosity. So from that I became initially I was studying wildlife biology, and I became a Maine whitewater and sea kayaking guide, and I started working with kids, and then I worked for Outward Bound and led trips, and ultimately that brought me into a career in education, somewhat outside the norm. I led educational programs in Colorado, New Hampshire, and the Bahamas for most of the last 20 years that were all largely place-based experiential programs, but also tied with a very traditional model. So this blend that connected, built strong communities around connecting people to the outdoors.
Super cool.
And then I wanted to come back to Maine. So then the question was, what will that look like, and what will I continue to do, and where do we want to live? And I was lucky enough to find MITA, who I had first gotten introduced to probably 20 years ago when I first became a sea kayak guide and was looking for information in the state that I grew up in but didn't know anything about. And MITA was the resource. So I'm lucky to be here now.
Wow,
so cool.
What a windy path.
Yeah.
Well, and it seems like you've been rooted in outdoor education most of your career, which is basically what we love to talk about on this podcast.
Perfect.
Yeah, so you're the perfect example of kind of like what we hope people can be inspired by, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I never really, I working with kids for that long, it was true for me. I didn't really have a plan, right? Like I didn't know when I left high school that I'd be the executive director of a nonprofit in Portland, and it was probably the furthest thing from my plan. But I just kept following the thread that was in front of me, there you go.
That's
Well, and you're still making such a crazy impact in like creating access to the outdoors and like educating people. Like you're still staying on that thread of what you're passionate about, which
Yeah,
is
it
really
feels
aligned.
perfectly tied, exactly where I want and need to be, and it's great.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I am such a MITA fangirl because of exactly the reason you said. Like when you were, like I'm a sea kayak guide with Portland Paddle, and this is such an incredible resource and a tool, really, as a guide and just as a person who likes to play on the waters of Maine.
Yeah.
And I find myself always going back and like feeling cozy opening the guidebook and just like looking at all the places that I could go and the possibilities. So I'm curious, like your perspective of like what MITA is for somebody who has no idea. And MITA is the acronym. I feel like it's good to clarify the acronym for Maine Island Trail Association. So we'll probably use that quite a bit. But yeah, what is the organization and what do you all do?
Sure. Well, we're coming up on our 40th anniversary in just a couple of years. We've been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
The origin, when you roll back the clock to the kind of mid 80s, concepts like Leave No Trace and kind of outdoor recreation, they just looked different. They didn't actually exist, and they were kind of in there. They were forming at the same moment that this idea was forming. And the coast of Maine, many people were kind of exploring on their own and had all these wild adventures, and many other people had absolutely no idea what was out there. And so it really started with the state also not knowing what was out there and asking our founder, who at the time was spending lots of time on the water, to help them figure it out. And the idea was born that really this belief that if people fall in love with something, they'll take care of it. And how do you kind of pair access with stewardship? And what would it look like to build a network of islands and coastal sites along the coast of Maine where people could go and disconnect and reconnect with nature and themselves, but take care of those places. And so we've been doing that for 40 years. We have partners up and down the coast. There's 375 miles of water trail, just to clarify. People often wonder what the Maine Island Trail is, and it is on the ocean. So think of the Appalachian Trail, but on the water. So you navigate from New Hampshire all the way to Lubec, and along the way there's 240 sites. And what we do is really cultivate and steward the relationships that allow for that, because there's private landowners and public landowners and conservation land trusts and others who own these properties. And so we first establish a relationship built on trust. They're all handshake agreements, and then we go out there and with volunteers up to 1,000 a year, we go out and take care of the places and make sure that they are kept wild, remain open to the public, but also in a state that when you get there, you really feel sometimes like you're the first or the only, or at least the infrequent visitor who gets that opportunity. So we've got a staff of people and an army of volunteers, and we every day go out and clean up the coastline and take care of invasive species and manage erosion and all the things that impact the island ecosystems. And in exchange, our members get access to the information to both go out there and recreate, but also to participate in all those community events.
Yeah.
Cool.
So awesome.
This has certainly been a sort of factoid point that has come up in a couple of different episodes, but it is still always just fascinating to me when you look at the percentage of land in Maine that is privately owned. And maybe this is something that you could speak to coming from the MITA perspective. Looking at some of the other examples that I've seen across the country where there is so much more public land component, while it seems like a sort of challenge in plenty of ways, right? It also, to me, from the sort of outside perspective, feels so much like a massive advantage, because there's such a requirement for the relationship management piece, and I mean how that connects to stewardship as a whole. Like there's such a rich connection there. So I don't know if there's how you would want.
To your earlier point, this could be a topic all of its own. I agree. I mean, the Maine, as you just pointed out, is very unique in the kind of amount of accessibility we have, but without the the actual public land aspect of it. And one of the things is just to connect to my own love of education and working with people, especially in the realm of place-based education, is to think about how ecosystems and people are kind of necessarily interconnected, and how history and culture is born from all those interconnections. And so Maine is unique. It's unique for a lot of reasons. One, it's absolutely stunning and beautiful, and has what I think are kind of globally significant environmental resources, but also just places to recreate. And we have this history and culture of timberland and kind of privatization of land that those landowners did not want liability for. And so there's legislation that has allowed for them to allow access with limited liability. And so that is an underpinning that is unique to Maine, and it is not replicated in most places. So when we often talk to people around the country, organizations, nonprofits, and others, especially in coastal communities, who want to replicate what we do, but they're coming from a different culture, they're coming from a different set of legislative rules, they're coming from, so it doesn't make it impossible, but it makes it different.
Yeah.
And you can't just take our model and apply it elsewhere very easily. So it's built on all the things that make Maine Maine, and the fact that we love and share the coast with all the people who work on the water, and the people who recreate on the water, and the people who come from around the world to visit it, and that interconnection makes it unique.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me, because I think, when you talk to just the average person, I'm sure their immediate thought when they're talking about that kind of like land that we would be traditionally accessing for outdoor rec, right?
Yeah.
They're thinking of like the massive national park out in Colorado that has federal protections and all kinds of different like layers in there.
Yeah.
But it highlights the incredible work that, like, whether it's you all with MITA or a number of different like conservation-based nonprofits are doing when it comes to that relationship management with those landowners, right? Because I've talked with some folks in the like trail building community, and they're like, yeah, like one of the biggest challenges is like you're always trying to manage that relationship, because if one of those switches, now like am I rerouting a mountain biking trail that I'm building through Western Maine? So it's like it just that work I feel like you cannot value enough in terms of like what you guys are doing on a day-to-day basis with that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right. And your point that there are so many good organizations doing that work, both here on the coast, but also inland. And that we, the people of Maine, and even the visitors, are the benefactors of, sometimes totally without our knowledge, that we're only afforded this because of that relationship building. I think is a really important point, and I think something that, again, if you grow up in the West, and a state like Utah that has whatever 80-something% public lands, just isn't. That's not the reality. It's not the lived reality. So here it is, and I think it's a huge opportunity. I mean, in terms of, again, what we often, I think, take for granted, the things we have access to, but also that we have to, and I think whether that's at the government level or in the nonprofit world for sure, and in our work, we have to continue to put effort into sustaining, because the world will always continue to change, and just because it was true won't make it true tomorrow. So how are we continuing to do that good work?
Totally, for sure.
It's like the reciprocity between the land and the owners, and like you're cultivating that, and then also educating people on how to use those places. Right. And so what are the ways that you guys educate like the land users? Yeah,
well, thank you for naming it, because that's right. I think at the end of the day, we've always been believed, and I increasingly believe this is true, that you don't actually, there are some circumstances where, of course, we want to minimize or even disallow for either a period of time or for long periods of time kind of human activity for the sake of species that are nesting, or a wide variety of conservation reasons that are really critical. And in general, I think we've learned over time, and MITA has always believed that if done well, access and stewardship, that really reciprocal relationship of building a connection to and love for, and then taking care of a place, is actually ultimately good, not just for people, but for the places that they love. And so we first and foremost, we kind of really think about and cultivate a particular ethic of stewardship. What do we mean by use? So that education goes out in the resources that we provide, a guidebook and our app and our websites and things like that, to our membership, but also importantly individually with the landowner, really understanding what's important to them. And again, that could be a wide variety of things. There might be existing easements and conservation rules and regulations that are really critical. They also might just simply have particular uses that they are okay with or aren't okay with. And so navigating across that spectrum of public lands to private lands to land trusts, that can vary a lot. So there's kind of a basic ethic of stewardship and recreational use that mirrors much of what you'd find around the country in terms of leave no trace principles and other elements that are unique to these environments. That we're working with young people and partner programs that are working with young people in the outdoors, and then ourselves delivering. When we connect people through our stewardship program, and we'll talk a little bit about all that volunteer work, and I know you're talking with my colleague later about that, but we bring 1,000 people a year out to participate and do that work, and those are just, every time we have a touch point, whether it's in that scenario or in just a broader gathering or event to talk about our values and that work, I think is part of that kind of ripple effect of education. But increasingly, we've been doing a lot more work with young people and with communities that might not otherwise have access to these places, and trying to figure out how we become not just the kind of providers of information and stewardship, but also really break down the barriers for folks that keep them from these places.
Yeah.
So much work to do, but
yeah,
scratching the surface.
You all are doing so much work. I mean, working at Teens to Trails, I was so grateful to be able to have access to the Access Fund that MITA has, and we were getting young people out onto the islands, and beyond just like the stewardship opportunities where you're like physically showing people the assets that are available to them and how to take care of them, but you're also like getting them out there to go play and like have fun with these partner organizations. Because I mean, I love a nonprofit for the fact that they think that they can do it all.
Right.
But I mean, another beautiful thing about this podcast and like what we've been highlighting is the partnership and collaboration across the industry. And I feel like it's really powerful that you're able to like lean on other partners to be able to give access to the Maine Island Trail and like show people that this exists. And there's a 5-star, it's not a hotel, but it's a 5-star tent site that's for free right over there. You just have to get there.
That's right. And the getting there can sometimes be tough. Whether it's a knowledge gap or a comfort gap or a resource gap or all kinds of things. Yeah, I think that's right. I think MITA is one of the good things that I stepped into. I had no historic involvement in, but is that we've always been about partnership and relationship and trust, and that kind of is the work. Whereas in many nonprofits, of course, you've got your work, and then you also try to be good neighbors. In our case, we depend on all these organizations just to even have the access to be able to do the stewardship, to allow people to recreate. So I think within our culture and our values and our ethos is just that desire to build bridges. And there's always more work to do. And as I've returned to Maine and gotten more connected with both the nonprofit world, but the coastal community and kind of outdoor world that exists in Maine, I think there's so much more opportunity for partnership and collaboration and less siloing and more working together. We're in many cases all trying to row in the same direction. So, absolutely. And I found everyone is wide open to that, but sometimes we haven't yet figured out what it should look like.
Right. Well, and half of it's just like the awareness that each other not only exists, but like what are the things that we are actually rowing towards the same direction.
Yes.
Right. And that's another huge reason of like why we started the podcast was just like, how do you expose, because especially in long form content like this, as an industry, we are just like not great at doing it. Like we're pretty good at the like beautiful 15 to 30 second Instagram reel.
Yeah.
We're okay at the like 2 to 3 minute video that goes on your website, right? But when you start like really trying to give people some detail about like what is happening and getting to that next level of care, I guess is a way to put it.
Yeah.
Like just allowing people to be aware that these things are happening and like, oh my God, like what a great opportunity to now get partnered with an organization like MITA or whoever. Just like making people aware. Like we live in an incredible time of like being able to consume information and have it readily available. And now it's just like, how do you point people in the right direction and be like, go work with them? Like, this would be awesome.
Kudos to you guys for building one more way to do that, to connect the dots. So I think it's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But Teams of Trails, you mentioned, and your prior employer, and work, and they're a great example of an organization where actually increasingly we're doing more and more with them. And here we are. Their work so important to connecting young people and communities throughout Maine with opportunities to just develop and deepen a love of the outdoors and a connection to it. And here we are with an incredible resource. Ultimately that we actually want, as again part of our founding idea and mission, is that we want to allow and create and proactively develop a relationship with these places, and why wouldn't we kind of deepen that involvement? So they continue to be amazing. We're doing some programs this summer that go beyond the Access Fund itself and into just weekend-long and overnight programming with different school communities. And, so there's so much more to be done, but it's cool.
Yeah, well, and showing young people that this is, like, especially young people that grew up in Maine, that I don't think people understand the length of the coast and just how much is out there. And to be like, this is in your backyard, like this is in your home state. And I think a lot of the work that we are doing is like showing middle school and high school students how amazing it is where they live and to be proud of where they live.
That's right.
And, it's just, especially those who are in like central Maine or northern Maine, they're so far away from the coast. That it's their first times coming and experiencing the ocean. And that's just a beautiful thing in itself. So,
well, I grew up 5 or 10 minutes from the coast and I had absolutely no idea what was out there. And it took me, maybe this is typical. This is how we all need time. But it took me going away and discovering all this natural wonder elsewhere to really value and come back here looking for the same. So some of that is inevitable, and maybe our, I've got kids that are kind of rising 7th and 9th graders, and I don't think they would buy it if I told them that Maine is the best place on earth, but they might eventually figure it out.
They might realize it eventually.
To the choir.
They are lucky, and they don't know how lucky they are, because we get to go out and spend nights on islands and do all these crazy wild things that I think, when you're that age, it can be easy to take for granted, but
I mean, they'll look back at it, I'm sure, or they'll be the ones that go and explore and then come back.
And even if they don't, I'm having a great time doing that with them.
Right. Well, and I think too, it's also really interesting. This brings me back to a comment that was made on the episode that we did with Zach Ankers from Portland Paddle, of like, sometimes, unfortunately, also like when people are thinking of the coastline of Maine, they are only thinking about the actual land part. All of the islands that run up along the coast is like a totally different universe than what they're thinking about. And so I think that's also a really unique perspective of like you all putting that on a pedestal and being like, hey, realize that all of this stuff exists and there's incredible like spaces to explore with those things. And so I would be curious. I know we talked about this a little bit already with like the sort of differences in legislative process that allows like land in Maine to be very unique. But like, as you talk to some of your different coastal partners up and down the U.S., like, what are the things you feel like really make Maine's coastline so different than maybe some of those other destinations?
Oh my gosh. Well, so much. I think, Maine, we all know this, of course, but to your point about most people in Maine not actually experiencing it firsthand, is that Maine is a global destination, particularly, various parts of Maine for different reasons. We all know it's an absolutely beautiful state, whether you're, in the mountains, on a river, or here on the coast or beyond. But the coast of Maine in particular has been, will be, and is a global destination for sailors, for sea kayakers, for people who want to explore. And it's also so richly steeped in a kind of mariner history.
Mm-hmm.
We've got an incredible, long culture that is embedded in the fishing history and culture that we continue to cultivate in ways that make Maine Maine. So I don't know. I want, last year someone sent me some feedback that had come into their organization about someone who had just for the first time come and sailed on the coast of Maine and how much they loved it and what made it so beautiful and unique. And it was all of that, right? It was the beauty of the islands, the welcoming nature of the communities they came when they came to shore, the interactions they had with fishermen, the totality of that experience on the coast is something that we should be really proud of, excited to continue to move all of that forward, and I think ultimately will continue to bring people back, and not that we only want to build things for tourists, but to your point earlier, I think the fact that people are coming around the world and that at the same time, along our shores, people don't even know that it exists, is I think one of the puzzles that I'm certainly interested in beginning to change. So finding those ways to create access and create opportunities and connect people to the coast so that they can love what's right in their backyard. But it's hard. It's hard to get out there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, as a sea kayak guide, it's like I went through so much training, and, to become one in Maine, especially. Like we've talked about it on the podcast, but it's like there's a lot of, you can't just go. And working at Portland Paddle too, like renting boats to people. Like the amount of conversations I've had to be like, this is the ocean. There are tides, there's wind, there's weather, there's current. Like there's just so many things to think about. So, and when I'm normally the guide out of my friend group, bringing people to the Maine Island Trail, and it's like, okay, these are all the things that we need to think about when we're going out there, but it's not the easiest thing to do. So, and then that's just the people who are using their bodies to get out there, let alone like the motorboat world. It's a whole other thing.
Right.
So it is tricky and it can be expensive, and there is that knowledge barrier.
I think those things, again, I think the one thing that's inevitable is change. And so what is certainly more true today than when we were kind of just an idea in the 80s is it's gotten certainly more expensive.
Yeah.
Access to the waterfront itself has become increasingly limited. The environmental issues that are at play in terms of climate change and issues of erosion and kind of just changing landscapes and invasive species and the wide variety of things that impact it is always changing. So the barriers are many, and yet I continue to think like we at least in our world, the Maine Island Trail it exists as a recreational resource, as kind of widely understood, but nonetheless, it is a recreational resource and one in which we want to make sure is both accessible but also cared for. So that balance is always at play, and I think that what I have come to believe, and in my first couple of years of really getting to know both the trail, but the people, the landowners, the people who take care of it, my staff, and the volunteers who are so dedicated to it, is that if anything, the model that we've created is the antidote, not the problem. And what I mean by that is, we've always had internally and within our broader community the concern of like, well, we yes, we want the access, but we don't want too many people. And exactly, but if it's the right kind of use, if it's the right kind of ethos, if it's the right kind of visitor who's leaving it better than they found it, and then from there applying that ethic elsewhere, that in fact that's a good thing. Yeah. And so how do we cultivate that?
Well, and I think we saw a lot of that, like that hard, deep conversation of like post COVID, when you had so many of these outdoor spaces that just had incredible amounts of like use occurring on them, and you're like, okay, but is this sustainable?
Right.
And then like, what is the mechanism to then manage that appropriately? Like moving forward is obviously a really challenging conversation, but
yeah, and what you'd find along the trail is there are islands that are kind of necessarily not, and these are often public islands, state-owned islands that are by their very nature public access islands that get lots of use in comparison to others, and so we manage them differently. And so, for instance, if you're out here in Casco Bay, and if we could look out the door just around the corner, not too far away, we find Jewel Island, which is one of the most heavily visited islands in Casco Bay, and we have a seasonal caretaker who lives out there and manages and educates visitors and users and does active stewardship both on the daily but also with groups periodically. And so that's managed differently than an island that you're going to find off the Bold Coast that only gets 2 visitors a year, because it's hard to get to and it's rustic, and frankly, not everyone wants to be there, and that's okay.
Sure.
Like so, and in fact, so I think that's the beauty of a network like ours is it's not kind of a one size fits all or one strategy for all. We've got to, if the goal is ultimately to manage them appropriately for the use. So there are rules and regulations. You can't, all kinds of things you can't do, and we need you to do, or want you to do, or we're going to encourage you to do. But if there's a lot of visitors, how do we manage it differently than spaces that are less visited?
Yeah.
I'm curious, like beyond Casco Bay, I know you have like Little Shabig and Jewel have caretakers.
Yeah.
And what I love about that model is like you have somebody actively going up to the visitors, saying hello, and kind of showing them that they're there, what MITA is about, but also like hopefully educating them so that they leave the place better than they found it.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if there are any other areas outside of Casco Bay that you've thought about maybe extending that type of, model.
Org model, yeah.
Yeah. Well, just to name the state does have employees, park rangers who live out, for instance, on Warren Island.
Yeah.
So there are state parks that are also on the trail, and that we aren't necessarily the ones managing and staffing, but that we work closely with the state to do similar work on. And yeah, we think about it a lot, is where are those islands? Where does it make the most sense? Unsurprisingly, Casco Bay gets more use than most of the state in terms of recreation of all kinds. And so that could be guides who are bringing groups out. So a lot of our work is just to partner with and connect with those who are going to be at the forefront of connecting people to these places, and ensuring that that those folks, at least to the best of our ability, are sharing the same kind of basic values, lessons, and kind of responsible use expectations. And then, expand upward. If you go into Penobscot Bay, there's a wide variety of ways that people are getting out on the water who have no experience. So yes, there's a sea kayak world, but there's, you can also go for a week on a big, tall ship.
The
The
schooner.
schooner fleet, and there's all kinds of great models out there. You could even just simply hop here in Portland, and this is a little bit more of the Wild West, but into a water taxi and get a ride.
Yes, people do that on Jewel all the time.
On Jewel all the time, which is exactly why we have a caretaker there, because it is so accessible. And I think I think that's not known to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I get, friends who reach out to me, or members who reach out to us who have lived here for a long time and say, oh, I want to get out there. How do I do it? And just that first question of having some idea of how you do it, but also that's for us the entry point. Yeah. Well, here's how you would do it, but also here's how you should behave while you're out there.
Sure.
And what we need from you in return.
So do you have kind of a resource like that, like for somebody listening, if they're like, oh, this sounds really cool, I want to go to the islands, is there something like on the website or like what? Well,
first and foremost, I'd say become a member.
Yes.
And what membership is and what membership does, it's important, is ultimately becomes our avenue for communicating. So our way of creating community, of sharing certainly the information for access, but also that ethos and kind of stewardship ethic, for connecting people to volunteer opportunities, for connecting people to each other. So if you're an interested new boater or new kayaker, or want to be, It's a community of people who share an interest and have, in many cases, lots of experience. And so it's just a way for us to help draw the connections between, yes, that's out there, but also how can we take care of it? So become a member. With that, you, yes, get all the information, but also become a part of a community, support the work of stewardship. And so it's our belief from a mission standpoint that actually all of that is important. We don't want to just be in the business of like publishing, for instance, you won't find our books on bookshelves in bookstores or libraries or other places, partly because, yes, we want that information to be out there, but we want you to really kind of become a part of that whole cycle. The relationship piece, the stewardship piece, the community piece. And then we do that because, again, the trail is made up of landowners across a wide spectrum, and many of them don't want the information just on the bookshelf. Because they have, the same fears that we discussed earlier. That like, I don't want the cruise ship showing up. I don't want just anyone coming and treating it however they want. I want to share this place, and many landowners you'll find will speak to this in really powerful ways. They really feel like they own it, but they own it for a time. And that this is not ultimately theirs. It wasn't before, it won't be after, it's not now. What it is a place that's magical and beautiful, and I want people to be able to experience it, but I also want to know that they're not going to destroy it. And I want to know that it's well cared for. And so that's there's a lot of work that has to go into that.
Totally.
And that membership model definitely helps that, and like giving the educational pieces when you become a member. Like, I absolutely love the guidebook, as I mentioned, because it kind of breaks up the entire coast and has each island and what the amenities are and what kind of the principles are when you go there, and what to expect, which is huge. And then you also have the app, which is another amazing tool. I found when I did the Casco Bay Traverse 2 summers ago, like I would find myself pulling it up and like seeing where I was, because I'd be like, okay, they all kind of look the same. They all kind of look the same on my chart, and I'm just gonna like see, and the beauty of technology and being in the middle of the ocean and having your phone out in my sea kayak. But like, what a cool resource to have like your location in an app that also has like the guidebook in the app.
We're actually probably weeks or months away from publishing a new app. We've had the one you're referring to has been amazing. We've had it for about a decade now. And again, technology changes, we're evolving. But also our goals have continued to evolve, right? We want that resource to be a place where people can connect to this opportunity. So again, if you're a seasoned kayaker and you want to plan your route the entire length of the trail, which we just had 2 incredible women, many do, but we just had 2 women who just did the entire length of the trail in like a 2-week period and share their story with us. But that can be a place to plan the trip. It can be a place to go during the trip. It has all the information you want, but also it has a community aspect where you can share and connect with others who are doing the same things. You can save your routes for later, or your memories and photos and things from your experiences. So you've got that. Awesome. And then also sign up for stewardship opportunities and connect with our events and programs. And so we'll see. Certainly our hope is that the app becomes increasingly a place to build that community that we're talking about in terms of that membership program. So
that's so funny. Literally yesterday, one of my best friends who I introduced to the sea kayaking world, I said, did you use the MITA app? Because she's planning a sea kayaking trip this weekend. She's like, I've been using it. She's like, I really want there to be like a kind of forum where I can like communicate with other people and like get advice from their experiences. And she was like, I really hope that maybe you could pass that along.
Okay, so well, there you go.
There's your anecdotal thing to finish the project.
I was just like, oh my goodness, you're like saying exactly what she wanted. And boom, I'm going to call her and be like, hey, you guys
it's on the way.
Yeah, it's on the way.
Yeah, cool.
Your wish is granted.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I was telling her, I was like, it'd be really cool for it to be similar to like, there's an app called Far Out for like backpacking, and you can get kind of advice on the next place, if there's gonna be water, if there's like bears in the area, or like just random things
kind
to
of
think
local
about.
Knowledge and expert.
So and then I said, well, a lot of the islands don't have service, because the other thing I absolutely adore about the islands is you show up and there's like a red Tupperware container.
Yes.
And it's on the post, so you know, like, okay, there's a MITA campsite here. And in the Tupperware container is like a little journal, and you can write about your experience. And so I always try to like leave something there, and I like reading through it.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah.
We call those the logbooks, and so
Yeah.
yes, they're on every site. And you know, much like you would a guest book in a house or something, you kind of leave your reflection of your time out there, and they are amazing. We actually have, as an internal staff, when we collect them every fall, there's a whole process of kind of transcribing the notes so that we just have them forever. But going through them, and we kind of joke because there's always super inspiring ones, then there's funny ones.
Yeah.
There's, you know, these things that you know are outrageous. And, you know, there's a wide variety of them, but they're amazing. And those will stay. They will, I think, always be there, and so important to the experience of being out there. Because what we're building in the app, we actually recognize it's not our intention to encourage people to kind of reconnect to the internet when you're out there.
Yes.
One of the things you're doing while you're out there, importantly, is disconnecting.
Yes.
So the app itself will have the ability that'll mirror a little bit of that logbook reality. That's where the kind of community sharing forum comes in. But importantly, like, you don't have to do that. And you can just keep it in the logbook if you want.
You guys should do like I just had this idea of like a coffee table book, and it's just like scans of the logbook. Like I would
I feel like
eat
you've
that
been
up.
living in the walls. These are all things we're talking
You're like,
about.
we're doing it.
Yeah. Well, we don't know exactly what it'll look like yet, but we've been talking a lot about that, because I think the stories of the people who are out there, the people who both do the work of stewardship, and the people who own these places, but also the people who are just out there experiencing it, and why they love it, and what they're finding out about themselves or nature or whatever. Those are the stories, and it's so that's kind of why we do the work. So I think there's a lot to tell there.
Yeah.
The coffee table book with those quotes, but also like I think of it as like the faces of MITA.
Yeah.
There are some remarkable people and some very really people essential to this work, but also to the point you made earlier, to so many good projects up and down the coast.
Yeah, your volunteers are incredible.
They're amazing.
They're all such good people, and every time I've met anybody who volunteers, I'm like, you just like curate this, you attract all the good people.
Well, I would say it's our superpower.
Yeah.
And again, as I've been kind of rapidly making sure I get to know the place and figure out what our strengths are, our volunteer base and our volunteer coordination, and then what we're able to do from a stewardship standpoint is the superpower.
Yeah, that must have been a really warm welcome for you coming in 2 years ago to this like community that was probably ready for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been great. It's been great. An incredible staff. We have, as you just met everyone, a small but mighty team, and then this network of volunteers who. We have a couple of programs in particular that have been around almost since the beginning. They kind of evolved in the early years from the two founders, Dave and Dory Getchell. So Dave was the one who was out there initially finding these islands, and Dory, his wife, who was always present and on the sidelines managing membership when there were no staff for many, many years, and then really evolving this idea with so many other people in the living room of their home and making it all come to life. And early this idea was like, what will it look like to have people who take care of these places, so who are accessing them, take care of them, and we created from Dory's vision really initially this island adopter program, and so which still exists today, and there are people up and down the coast who simply say, I go there, or it's right outside, where I live, or I go by it on my way because I'm a fisherman and I do this, or whatever it may be. But I have the ability to get out there and put eyes on it and check on it and take care of it and just report back and kind of do projects here and there. And so island adopters up and down the coast are really critical. And then our monitor skippers, we have 30 people who volunteer, some of them almost full time in the summer. I mean, really dedicated volunteers who drive the Midas Lunds that you'll see out on the water and get out there every single day. So on any given day, there's dozens to hundreds of people up and down the coast. It's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now you see why I'm a cheerleader?
No, I'm fully aware of why you're a cheerleader. Trust me.
It's
That's
so
cool.
great. Well, yeah, are there any other ways that like people could engage with MITA, like some events that people can engage with you all? Or just, I know you have your yearly like splash event, which is
Sure.
normally early summer. So, but are there just regular things that they can be a part
Well,
of?
there's always so much going on, and the summer season, of course, is an incredible amount of stewardship opportunities. We have larger cleanups often on weekends, both spring and fall, that are very, very popular. And then really every weekday we're out there, so we're taking volunteers all the time.
Nice.
And that's directly on the stewardship side. We have a wide variety of events for members and for broader community. And yes, we have big parties and small gatherings and other things that just bring people together to celebrate and to support the work and to make sure we can continue to do it. So I would say step one, if you become a member, then you know about all those things and you're invited to all of them.
Yeah.
But yes, there's so many ways to connect, so just reach out.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we have this segment that we like to kind of close out every episode called Voices from the Summit. It's a rapid fire question segment. Just allows us to get a little bit more knowledge about you, have a fun kind of quirky way to end the episode. So we'll kick it off with the first one. So what is your like best low tide find that you've ever had?
I would say every time I've explored with my kids, anything we find is the best. They're so curious, and that sense of wonder comes out. But any tide pool that we dig in and find sea stars and barnacles and whatever.
So many good things.
Yeah.
I was thinking mine initially came out and I was like the charger that fell out of my sea kayak at low tide, and then high tide came up, and then high tide went out, and then I found my charger again, but it was very rusty.
Yeah.
I did once find a tooth from someone who had recently lost it.
Oh my gosh, that's
All right, there you go.
crazy.
There you go. That's unique.
What is your best island snack?
Oh, I like peanut butter on sourdough.
Ooh.
I like that. Describe the future of Maine's outdoor recreation economy in one word.
I would say expansive. I think it's people need nature, and there's an incredible community of people who are building that outdoor.
That's awesome. It is amazing. I still don't think we have copied a single word in all the episodes that we've done.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
At some point, the stats have to say that that's not going to happen.
Like the word clouds,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the same size. Yeah.
This is a funny one. If MITA had a mascot, what would it be?
How about a tern, like the Arctic tern? I don't know. They're resilient and rugged. They love the coast.
Mm-hmm. They're cute.
Your marketing team is listening. All of a sudden, we're going to see some social content.
Maybe we need a mascot.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
It's a real.
Yeah.
I feel like your mascot might even be like one of your island stewards, the
Oh,
guy
wow.
with the big white beard, who lives in like, I don't know if I want to put out where his address is. I'm forgetting his name. It's like Ken or something.
You, by the way, the big white beard you just named most of our monitor skippers.
Yeah, I was like, he's in
But you're right.
Hartswell.
If we had to do like a caricature logo,
Yeah.
it would be very much that.
Big white beard.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've seen you on the Instagram. He's like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the other guy with the big white beard.
Amazing.
Biggest rookie mistake first-time island explorers tend to make?
Packing too much, maybe slowing down too little. Be there.
True.
Nice.
Well, the island bird perfectly that represents Maine. Do you feel like it's the tern?
Oh, see, yeah, we
There you go.
Maybe it's the turn. Maybe it's the turn.
Most satisfying part of a volunteer cleanup day?
Community. They are the most joyful days, connecting and meeting new people, but in these magical places. And community.
Mm. What island would you bring a first-time visitor to?
Whichever one on the Maine Island Trail is closest to them, because once you get out there, there's no turn back.
Yeah.
So, in a time where there are fewer and fewer places that truly have that ability to like allow people to disconnect and just like enjoy quiet and solitude, like what do you think we lose as a society if those kinds of places disappear?
I mean, first and foremost, the ability to connect to something bigger than ourselves. I think of particularly if you go out to an island and you get to spend the night offshore, the night sky is going to be beyond anything most people have imagined. To your point, there's on one hand a deep quiet, but also the sounds of nature, the water kind of splashing against the rocks and whatnot that very quickly humble you. So I think that the connection to something bigger than yourself, it creates a deep sense of awe and wonder, and ultimately then I think a better sense of who we are, which builds better people and stronger community. And sorry for a full circle answer here, but
so good.
So that's what it's all about.
yeah, I think it's it would be my greatest fear that there would be a future where we don't have those experiences.
Yeah. Well, that is a beautiful and poetic way to put the bow on this one. But
Truly.
Ben, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank
coming
you
on the
guys.
podcast.
Yes, it's been
So
great.
fun.
And we'll make sure that all of the social handles and the website and all that stuff gets thrown into the
Great.
episode descriptions.
How to become a member.
How to become a member. There will be a step-by-step guide. And you know, on that same note, like, I know we've been saying this at the end of every episode, but I'm going to continue to stress it until every one of you listen to me. Like organizations like MITA, like the More Than Outdoors podcast, like that follow on social, the subscribing to a YouTube channel, like those are all free things that have massive implications in terms of how these messages get spread to so many incredible people. And so hit that button, hit the like, throw us in a comment, like, have you experienced one or multiple of the islands on sort of the Maine Island Trail? Because we want to hear those stories. Because there's a lot of you out there, and I know that you all have been to some of these islands, so we want to hear about it. But until next time, we'll see you outside.
See you outside.